don't know if you're like me, but if you're a vegetarian, finding a really tasty bolognese recipe is so hard. You can substitute in with your fake meats and minces and things like that, but beef mince creates a certain flavour within a bolognese that's hard to recreate. The thing I'm trying to do today is make a bolognese, but I'm going to use lentils as my protein source, but I'm going to focus really on creating a really rich, deep, flavourful umami sauce for this bolognese. If you've not been here before, I'm Samantha. This is the channel Trying to Get By, and we're just trying to make things, cook things, buy things that are just going to help us out and make sure that we're well fed and we have full cupboards on a really decent budget. Let's have a look at this recipe that I'm going to do today. The main things I've got for this recipe are things that I have in my cupboard. If you've not got these things in your cupboard, I will try and advise you on things that you can possibly use to adapt. So, onion is a standard thing to start off with. This is balsamic vinegar. It's something I have in, it costs a few pounds, it lasts for ages, it won't go out of date, it's brilliant. I really, really love using it. Now, if you don't have any balsamic vinegar, I'm going to recommend that you use, I've got Henderson's relish. If you're not vegetarian or you're pescatarian, use Worcester sauce. Now, your Worcester sauce can substitute to a certain degree for your balsamic vinegar, but you might want to just put a splash of vinegar, preferably not the vinegar you use for your chips. If you've got another kind of vinegar or something slightly acidic, maybe even a little bit of lemon in there just to create that slight acidicness. We're going to go in with some oregano. If you've got thyme, that works really well. I've just got some mixed herbs as well. Black pepper. Mushroom powder, I can guarantee probably most of you haven't got, but it's really easy to do. If you are cooking something in the oven, and when you've finished in the oven, turn your oven on, slice your mushrooms really, 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 really thin, put them in the oven, leave the oven door shut. It might take a few goes. I did it in my Instant Pot on the dehydrate function, and it just creates a lovely dried mushroom, which I then blended. That's going to create a depth to it as well. If you've not got that, then you could add some fresh mushrooms to this. That would help. Or some miso paste, if you have that. That's another thing that will create that depth. Garlic paste, because I've not got garlic in. I'm still going to use my Henderson's, even though I'm still using the balsamic. We have got some plum tomatoes. If you've got olive oil, not extra virgin, just standard olive oil, use some of that. If not, just use a little bit of vegetable oil. Wine is optional if you have it. I have a little bit in the freezer that I'm going to defrost because my sister got rid of a bottle of wine that she didn't like, and I don't really drink red wine, so I just poured a bit into a freezer bag so that I've got some in. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to chop our onion. We're just going to cut it into fine slices, and we're going to start caramelizing that off in a little bit of oil. In regard to the lentils, this is just a cup of red lentils. These are dried lentils. All I'm going to do with these is just put them in a separate container and soak them in some cold water while I'm getting everything else ready. That's all you've got to do for them. And they're cheaper than canned lentils. Canned lentils are convenient, but dried lentils are much, much cheaper. And if you look in your international aisles as opposed to your standard aisles, you often find them even better value there. Make sure your oil is nice and hot before you put your onions in. Cut them as thinly as you can. That'll help them cook quicker and caramelise quicker. So we're just going to cook these. So I'm going to start them off on a highish heat. Turn it down very, very slightly. And I want to cook these until they start to caramelise. So we're going past this translucent stage into the browning stage. If you find that your onions are starting to get a little bit stuck to the bottom of the pan, just put a little squeezy of water. I've got my trusty squeezy bottle ready, just to put a little splash of water in there. So we're going to cook these. This is probably going to take a good 10 minutes to cook off. In the meantime, let me just show you what I've got here. So here is my frozen wine. It ends up like a wine slushy. That's only just come out of the freezer. My lentils are in there. If you don't have any red wine, you could also use a red wine stock pot. Don't ask me how long I've had these because I forgot they were in the pack. There we go, 8.22. So nearly a year old. I'm not fussed, that'll be absolutely fine. I'll open it, I'll smell it, I'll taste it, see whether it's any good. But that's what we've got, so that's what we're going to go in with. So back to the onions. And we are just going to cook these off, turn it down very slightly, and keep an eye on them, give them a bit of a move around because you don't want them to go browned too quickly without softening really nicely. One ingredient I forgot to mention, tomato puree. Don't forget that. This is one of the best ways to make your sauce have that rich tomato flavour, so don't forget that, like I nearly did. I've just turned this down ever so slightly, and we're going to go in with the garlic. So you can see this browning on the bottom. Don't be afraid of that, that's the good stuff. So garlic now, a couple of teaspoons or about 4 cloves of garlic. Get that in. Just cook that slightly. You don't want to overcook your garlic. Don't worry, again, like I say, if you get these brown bits. That is all good. Now we're going to go in with our tomato puree. Now you want to cook this off for a good couple of minutes, and I'm going in with quite a bit. So that's probably 2 heaping tablespoons. So you want to cook this off, because otherwise it can be quite bitter. And just give that a good cook out for a couple of minutes. Next we're going to go in with our herbs. So we're going to go in with about a teaspoon of mixed herbs, a tablespoon of oregano, some salt and pepper. There we go. A little bit of salt. And a few cracks of pepper. There we go. And then in with our frozen red wine, which will help deglaze all that off the bottom. There we go. That's about 100 mils of wine. Whoop. There we go. So you see what that's done now. See how it's cleared majority of that away. You want to cook that on a reasonably high heat until the smell of alcohol, you know, that harshness of alcohol disappears. So while that's doing that, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of balsamic, a few splashes of our Henderson's. So that's about a teaspoon of Henderson's, or a tablespoon if you're not doing the balsamic. Now if you've not got mushroom powder, use this. You can get this at Tesco's. It's great. It's so flavourful. I've got a couple of bottles of this. I've got a bottle in the fridge and a bottle in the cupboard because it is a really, really good, intense flavour bomb. It is liquidy. It is not like ketchup like what you would expect. A few people have mentioned to me that they have bought this because I've been showing it on my videos. So that's really good, and it is really, really, really tasty. And it just gives that extra flavour to something. I'm going to go in with my mushroom powder, which looks like dirt, but smells amazing. So I'm just going to put a bit of a sprinkle of that in. So that's about a teaspoon of that. So already we're starting to get a nice dark rich colour. This will lighten up once we add our tinned tomatoes in. Now I use plum tomatoes. I harp on about plum tomatoes being better than chopped tomatoes. The thickness of the sauce is much, 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 much better. So I'm going to pop that in. break these down, which they will do anyway in the cooking process. Now my lentils will take about half an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on low and just simmer it. Now if you want to speed it up a little bit, prep your lentils early on, and then you can leave this on a slightly higher heat and it will cook a little bit quicker. But I'm quite happy to just put this on a really low heat with the lid on. Have you seen this? I'm making a mess as usual. I cannot keep anything on the inside of a pan. I basically should just make everything in a wok for the size, so I don't make a mess. Chris moans at me because we have the deal of I cook, he cleans, but then he cleans up after tea, but then he moans at me, it's like you leave mess on purpose. Right, so I'm going to pop my lid on, turn the heat down on low, pop that lid on, let that cook and tidy up the mess. The lentils have pretty much absorbed a lot of this water, so I'm going to pop this into our pan, which I have to smell walking in the kitchen. It smells really good. So I'm just going to take the lid off. Oh, give that a little bit of a mix. It does look so much deeper and darker than, excuse me, if you've got a pasta sauce out of a jar. This is much, much richer. And before I do anything else, let's do a little taste. Ooh, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's got flavour. Right, I'm going to go in with these. It's quite a lot of lentils, but it should be able to take it. I'm going to use the lentil water because I know that that's got a lot of some starchiness in it. So that'll help thicken it up as well, because we want the lentils to absorb now the flavour of the bolognese sauce. So I'm going to put the lid back on. If you notice when I took the pan lid off, it had a little bit of a bubble. So we got a little bit of bubble, bubble, bubble. You want it so that you want your temperature so that you've got that slight bubbly simmer. Not a rapid boil, just a nice little blip, 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 blip going on. That's the only way I can describe it. Put the lid back on. I'm going to leave it at the heat it was at because it seemed to be working. I'll come and check it in about 10 minutes and just see what's happening, because obviously the temperature's been reduced because we've had the lentils. And we are just going to cook that now. I'll say 10 minutes, see where we're up to. But at minimum, it's going to take a good 20 minutes for this to do. Now, this is actually going to be quite a decent portion. I'm looking at this thinking, this is at least going to serve 4. So if you are not really thinking to yourself, hassle of doing all this kind of stuff, double the quantity, make a bigger portion, use a bigger pan, freeze whatever you don't use. That's one of my go-to things. So we're going to use half of this and I will freeze the other half. If you've got a bigger family, there's more people, double it, triple it, freeze, or, you know, save it for portions for lunches. So this bolognese, I should say, not spaghetti, bolognese has been cooking through for just over half an hour. I've turned it right down now, so we're not got any bubbling going on. Absolutely thick and delicious. All I'm going to do now is I've got some pasta. I'm just going to refresh this pasta before serving it with the sauce. Now traditionally I would dump this in there, but as you can see there's not much room going on. So all I'm going to do is, this is pasta I cooked yesterday because I had a different pasta yesterday for my lunch, and I'm just going to refresh this in some boiling water. It'll take a couple of minutes to get up to temperature before I serve it with this, but let us have a taste. So that looks really, really good. that has got that depth of flavour you want from a bolognese. Granted, having lentils means you've not got that softness that you would have if you did veggie mince, but you've got that little bit of texture that you would have with beef mince. So there we go, that is our bolognese. That is such a tasty flavour and so unctuous. I know it's going to go amazing once I put the pasta in there. We're going to have that for our tea once Chris gets home. I'm really pleased with those flavours. Like I say, try and find substitutes if you haven't got all the ingredients that I mentioned. So if you've not got the balsamic, look for something with a little bit of acidity, a vinegar, a lemon, like I said. Not the vinegar you put on your chips, but some kind of vinegar or acidity in there would be great. If you've not got the mushroom powder, go for that mushroom ketchup. It is absolutely amazing. It's one of the best things I have found for enhancing and adding flavour. It's not a massive price as well. It's about £1.50 in Tesco's. I've seen it on Green Gin recently. In fact, somebody on our Facebook page, trying to get by Facebook page, if you've not joined us, please do so, has posted that they've seen it on the Green Gin app. I'd already seen it in there, they saw it again, so I've actually bought it twice on that app, once for a reduced price and once completely free, so that was really, really good. So that's why I've got those 2 bottles in there. And just looking for things that are going to give you that depth of flavour. Definitely tomato puree is the way to go to give you that real depth of tomato flavour. And if you've not got the red wine, I wouldn't, to be honest, really worry about it that much. If you've got a red wine stock pot, brilliant. If you're not, I suggest just cooking it on a low heat for just that little bit longer, and that will enhance the flavour even more. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to enjoy this pasta. Thanks for watching. Please do the liking and subscribing, and I will see you next time.